You know, we come from a lineage in this practice of people who are notoriously late for things. So if that's you, you're in good company. Yogi Bhajan was late constantly for everything. And I know because my teacher was his driver. So he would say to him, "Run the red, I'll pay the ticket." And he would. So there you go. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the aura today, and then do a practice to brighten the aura. And it's important for this practice because it moves a lot of energy that you're able to sit comfortably. Because today when I did it, I felt like I was vibrating, and then when I was able to get a little more comfortable in my seat, I could manage the feeling of the vibrations. Because this is energy work that you were doing. It's not gymnastics like in some yoga you're doing, like trying out for Cirque du Soleil practice. We're not really doing that here. We're working on the subtle level, but through the physical, you know. And most yoga, that's how it works. It's a journey from dense to subtle, right? A journey from this stuff, the tangible, matter, we call it matter, into consciousness or energy. And I can't remember the exact quote, but there's a great teaching from Nikola Tesla, who said, if we studied what can't be seen, like energy, and put more emphasis on that than what you see on the surface, we would make more progress scientifically in a short period of time than you would in hundreds of years. That's what he talked about. He's like a yogi. And a lot of scientists are like that, and I love the parallels now, like a lot of science is catching up with what the yogis have taught. There's a good book called The Buddha's Brain, which you can read about how the brain works in states of meditation. I'm really interested in that. And even my teacher, they studied him in MIT. They put him into, studied him in deep states of meditation. And just to see like how the brain is functioning in meditation. They've also done studies on Tibetan monks where they put them in meat lockers in deep states of meditation, and the body temperature doesn't change. So that's an energetic work. It's not, hey, look what I can do. You know, it's happening on a very subtle level. And that's what we're working with in meditation practice. We're going from the surface deeper and deeper inside to an experience of what the yogis say is your true self. And that brings me to the question I wanted to ask you, and if you have any insight, that would be cool, and if not, you know I'll probably talk for 20 minutes before we do anything. But Yogi Bhajan, he said the soul lives in the dungeon of the rib cage. Do you know what that means? It's kind of an intense language, but I really like it. It means that when you are operating on the surface, what you're able to do is quite limited. But when you go beneath the surface, you can connect to something far more vast than just this. This is pretty amazing too. Like you're just sitting there listening to me, and while you're sitting there listening to me, there's an entire universe functioning inside of this piece of earth where you live. And a large portion of that you don't have to think about. It's just happening automatically. About 20% of that you have some say in. 10% is subjective, 10% is objective. So you don't really have too much say in what's happening in the physical body. It's sort of interesting, isn't it? But if you start to tap in to this deeper experience of who you are, there's a lot of freedom in that. It's why these great yogis like Ramana Maharishi, when he got sick at the end of his life and people were devastated that he was going to pass away and his body was in pain, he said he wasn't in pain and it wasn't him who was sick, just the body making a transition, just like nature. Like the sun goes up, the sun goes down. Winter comes, then the spring, then, and all of these things, they just happen. But somehow you have a relationship to all of this on a deeper level than that. It's almost like I often think about if nature or matter is always subject to change, then your thoughts are part of nature. But we don't think about it like that because they're getting more subtle than the physical. But you don't have the same thoughts, right? I mean, did you have the same thoughts today that you did yesterday and the day before? And did you have the same thoughts when you were 20 and 10 and 5? And they're always shifting and changing, like nature, right? And then a little more subtle is your personality. Is your personality the same as when you were 7? No. But a portion of it is. Right? There's something in there underneath all of this that is consistent. And yoga is about getting in touch with that. And if you have these, you'll hear me say it a lot in meditation, like focus at the eyebrow center and imagine that you're everywhere at once. It's really vast consciousness. In fact, the Buddha, he talked about the mind and space being the same thing. So where's space? Everywhere. It's everywhere. Isn't it? Like, where is space not? It's kind of a hard philosophical question. I mean, but at the same time, it's very simple. Space is everywhere. And so mind is everywhere, bless you. The universal mind. So you have what they call a brain-mind connection. You have an individual experience of the infinite. That's you living out your life. And then there's the infinite that is beyond the beyond. And you're that too. This is what the yogis are saying. And the experience of that is called yoga. Yoga comes from the word yuj. It means oneness with God. But not God, something outside of you. The infinite, everywhere at once. And a small portion of that is you. And you're experiencing that in your life. And the yoga practice is about connecting to that. How do you connect to that? That's up to you. It's according to your conditions. You can't rely on something outside of you to define that. Something may give you a tip along the way, like a teacher or a book, but ultimately the experience of it is empirical wisdom. You know what empirical means? Beyond theory. You can't really explain it. I love Ram Dass where he says, every time before I get up to give a talk like this, I think about the teaching from the Tao that says, he who speaks does not know, and he who knows does not speak. And then I have to get up and share a talk. It's an interesting thing because it's beyond words. It's an experience. And that's what makes Kundalini Yoga so special. That's what makes practices like Nam Simran, repeating the name of the infinite, however you understand it, you go into this deep state that is beyond the surface. And the more you put your feet into what we'll call the quantum field, not literally, but the more you get in touch with that, the more you can expand out from these infinite possibilities, and there's freedom in that. And the more you identify with all of this defining you, your karma defining you, that can become depression. Because depression means what? There's no way out. You can't see any hope. So everything around you is defining you. But if you're infinite, is there a way out? Always. Yogi Ji said there's a way through every block. Right? And that's the nature of duality. If there's a challenge, what does there also have to be? Yeah, and the yogi can see both at once. And how is the yogi able to see both at once? They develop intuition. And where does intuition come from? Meditation. And how do you experience meditation? On a surface level, you learn to concentrate. And that's difficult. Look what's happening in the world today. Is it easy for people to concentrate? No. You have to train concentration. I know, I have a 5-year-old. You're not just born with the ability to concentrate. It's learned. But your intuition is in there already. It's not like you're trying to get it from somewhere. It's in you. You just learn how to use it. Because it's your protection. Like an animal is born with claws or fangs or poison or can change color. What's your protection? Humans don't have claws. They don't have fangs. They don't have poison, except they use the tongue that way sometimes. Right? What's the protection of a human? Intuition. You can sense, this isn't right, we shouldn't be here. Oh, we're in danger, or we should, it's a sense. And the ability to concentrate will keep you steady. And some people are able to really get steady. Like Nelson Mandela, that's somebody who learned to really concentrate. You think he had an easy life? His ability to stay steady? No, he was challenged big time. One of my favorite stories is of this bodyguard of Nelson Mandela's on a plane with him, and the plane is in serious trouble in an electrical storm. And this big, strong guy is freaking out. And he said, you know what Nelson Mandela is doing while this is going on? Reading the newspaper. And he's like, how can he be reading the newspaper right now? This is insane. We might die. And then some time passes. They land safely. Some time passes. And he overhears Nelson Mandela telling somebody else that they were in this terrible storm. And he was afraid they were going to die. But he didn't show it. For what? You become emotional and commotional and worked up about it. Can you change the situation? No. If you see who you are in relationship to the situation, you act very level-headed. That's an expression for a reason, right? You have the intuition, the ability to see. Have you heard of a bogey before? Not a yogi, but a bogey. A bogey is like a bad yogi. I'm not making this up, like something you tell your kid. You read about it in the teachings. And the bogey is not connected to the meditative mind at all and is completely attached to the emotions. Do you see that happening? Turn the news on. Watch Trump's Twitter feed and ask yourself, is he connected to the meditative mind and not attached to his emotions? Or is he attached to his emotions and not connected to the meditative mind? You don't have to answer that. That's a bogey. It's called a bogey. It means you're not in touch with your protection. And if you don't feel safe, you feel small, right? And if you feel small, what do? You find some way to protect yourself, right? A lot of people, when they feel small, what do they turn to? Addiction. Drugs, alcohol, food, the internet, some form of distraction so that I feel protected or at least distracted. Or on the other side, power. If I can get more power, more wealth. But the issue with that is you connect or disconnect from your protection when you do that. And the interesting thing about drugs is they work until they don't. I know, I'm a recovered addict. They tap you into your intuition, and then you don't know how to do it on your own, and you're stuck with this habit. The experience that comes from drugs and power and money and all these things, when you feel good in the beginning, it's you. And then you start thinking that the thing outside of you is you. It's not. It's neutral. This is a neutral thing. Like some yogis, they think, oh, technology's bad. I'm a yogi now. I have to delete my Facebook and get rid of my Instagram. No. Or the flip side of it, you become attached to it. It's neutral. It's a reflection of your consciousness. So if you're really self-aware and connected to your intuition, I use this as service. I'm broadcasting out onto the internet right now, sharing the class to whoever will listen. It's amazing. But you could use it for a lot of harm. Same with money. Money isn't good or bad. It is, Yogi Ji said, money is what money does. It is. It's about security. So if we can go deep into states of meditation and become completely secure with who we are, not our karmas, not our physical reality, but who we are on a deeper level, then it won't really matter what's happening on the outside. Like my teacher would say, good and bad is coming. There's nothing you can do about it. There are some ways you can place yourself so you don't suffer as much or cause as much suffering. But can you avoid all suffering? No. You know, in yoga we call it sukh and dukh. Sukh is sweetness. Dukh is pain. You experience both. That's how it works. That's how addiction works. Oh, I love being high and taking the drugs. And then how do you feel after the drugs go out of the system? Low, pain. So people even get addicted to this. I want to feel good all the time. Then when you don't feel good, you really suffer. But that's happening no matter what. So meditation is you start to see, oh, I see this is happening. This is pain. This is sweetness. And I know who I am in relationship to all of it. And what were once these massive swings, an addiction to pleasure and a fear of pain, becomes just passing through. You know, and only meditation, in my experience personally, can connect you to that. There are many forms of meditation. It's not only this kind of meditation. You know, there are many forms, practices, and you understand where I'm going with this? So we're going to work on connecting on a deeper level to this energetic self. Because the practice of yoga is about looking inside of you. And religion in the past has done a great job of telling us to look outside of ourselves. We've built religions around people who have told you to look inside of yourselves. Isn't that strange? And so the marketing around the master who's saying look inside of yourself is saying look outside of yourself. It's a paradox. You know, the kingdom of God is within you. Not the kingdom of God is in the rules that we set, and if you don't follow them, you will not access them. That's mind control. It's you. It's in you. How could God be outside of you? How could the Guru be outside of you? It's you. Don't believe the hype or the marketing. Don't be confined by the intellect. We live in a society that worships at the throne of the intellect. You have an intellect. Use it. Think for yourself. But it's not you. You have a body, but that's not you either. Like if I was to look down at my arms and think, this is my arm, and it will only ever be my arm, I would feel some sort of fear and sadness because I would realize from science that my arm won't always be my arm. It's going to be something else. And then I would be freaked out by death. And I would tuck anything related to death out of sight so I don't have to think about it. Put the old people over there, hide it. Put the people in the hospitals, don't go anywhere near it. That's what the Buddha's father tried to do. You know, the Buddha's father, he tried to cover up any suffering from his son's eyes. So what did the son do like a good teenage son? He rebelled. He left the palace. And what did he see when he left the palace? Pain, sickness, old age, death. And so he thought, there's got to be some way to manage this. Everybody in the palace is pretending everything is fine. All these people on the street are in pain and suffering. What is my relationship to all of this? And he began to study meditation. To see that pain is coming. Sweetness is coming. We're passing through all of it. Can we find some way to manage this? And that's where meditation comes in. Should we give it a try? Okay. Sit tall, close your eyes. Rub the palms. Press the hands in prayer at the heart center. And